A very good evening, a warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick and Pay, and welcome not, as you'll see, to the Dan Really Likes Wine cellar, but instead to a rather splendid home in a little golf estate up near the Kruger. I'm at Leopard Creek for a day or two as part of the Nova Sun Charity Golf Day. We had a fabulous golf day today. Every single four ball out there today had a wonderful time, and we've raised a huge amount of money for charity. So it has been an excellent day out, and it has been particularly good because my opponent today was Jacques Callis, who some of your parents might remember from their cricketing days, and I beat him comfortably. So it was a particularly good day for me, and it is now being completed by some excellent wine in some terrific company. And that wine comes from two different estates. A little later, I'll be joining a familiar face to this particular show, Big Rob Armstrong, who you might know from TV. He's been in a couple of reality series over the years, but he's better known for making some terrific wine out in Franschhoek, and also of late becoming a semi-professional swimmer. He completed a swim to Robben Island over the weekend to raise money for the Watershed Animal Rescue and Rehabilitation Centre, and so we'll be chatting to him about what he did, why he did it, and also sampling some 13-year-old Cabernet Sauvignon to see just how well a Franschhoek red can hold. But before we do that, we've got somebody who's rather new in his job, not new to the job of winemaking, which he's been doing for some time and expertly so, but new to his newish home, and that is Quoin Rock in Stellenbosch. And he sent me up a few bottles to try. I've held back and not tried them until now, but I'm very much looking forward to doing so. So from Leopard Creek, let me dash down to the Cape and say a very good evening to Schalk Opperman. Schalk, warm welcome. Lovely to have you on the show.
Yes, hi Dan. Thank you very much for having me.
You have a jacket on. I certainly don't need one here. It's about 37 degrees up at Leopard Creek, so I'm in need of a chilled glass of Chardonnay, which I have in front of me. But before I try it with you, let's introduce everybody to Quoin Rock and a little bit of the history. I know it's a relatively recent tenure, which we'll look at shortly. But talk people through, where is Quoin Rock? What is Quoin Rock? Give us a little bit of background, if you will.
Yes, Dan, happy to do so. I'm glad you're getting the chance to enjoy our wines in such a beautiful spot in yourself. The Chardonnay is really going to rock you on a lekker warm Bosveld summer day over there. So, like you said, Schalk Opperman, I've only been here now for about 3 months. Started here in August when I made my move from Lambertsehoek. I was previously involved in Franschhoek at the place as well as in Stellenbosch, there is a wine estates. So I am familiar with border varieties and therefore very much excited to work with them again over here in the beautiful part of Stellenbosch. So Quoin Rock, you'll find here on the Knorrek Road, leading up to Knorrek, Morati, all these cellars on this side, right against the Stevensburg Mountain. Beautiful spot, beautiful area. It's always been one of my favorite spots in our wine industry. My first job actually was in the tasting room of Morati, just next door here behind me. So I've got very fond memories of this valley, and I really look forward to work with these grapes, these vineyards. The team, Nicholl, Walters, who's the viticulturist, is probably one of the best viticulturists in the industry, and to be able to get produce from a guy like that, work with it in a cellar like we have. It's a stunning cellar. I don't know if you ever came to visit, but I do invite you and I'll show you around. It's really a proper space to operate and really make wines of exceptional quality. So I look forward to that. We certainly have the tools, certainly have the vineyards. We have a strong team behind us under the leadership of the Gaiduk family. Dennis, the son of Vitaly Gaiduk, is running the show, as one can say, around here for 10 years after they acquired the farm. Had many changes, many things, but what I can say and what I found here, the wines are showing constantly excellent quality. So it's a good wicket to take over from, I must say. So yeah, look forward to work with the produce myself going forward.
The Gaiduk family, who you mentioned, who are running the estate now, come from a slightly different part of the world. I confess, I know very little about the Ukrainian wine industry, Schalk.
Yeah.
Is there one? Do they make any wine in the Ukraine?
Yeah, I believe so. Myself, my knowledge about Ukrainian wine industry isn't that big itself. At least I know about Ukraine and where the guys are from. But I think where the connection really lies is Dennis and his father, Vitaly, obviously travel around all around the world, at least when we still could. Had the opportunity to really taste wines from any area you can think of, and so they have a very sound knowledge of wine. They certainly know what they want. Quality is definitely the number one measure. I think it also shows that after they were looking around the whole world for a place to invest in a possible business in the wine industry, Italy, all over, they at the end chose our farm here next to the Siemensberg. So that must also speak loud words in terms of they believe the quality that one is able to produce here in the Siemensberg.
They found an excellent place to make wine. They clearly believe they found an excellent person to make that wine for them. And you do come with great pedigree, Schalk. What's the biggest challenge, saying goodbye to Lammerzoek and moving to Stellenbosch in terms of the new place you find yourself, slightly different terroir, slightly different part of the world? What are the questions being asked of you as a winemaker?
Yeah. No, sure, Dan. I think the biggest challenge of all is always arriving in a cellar and working with produce from previous winemakers. Water cultivars, as you know, spend 2 years and maybe even longer in barrel before you bottle. And I'm a guy that likes to work with the product from the beginning in the vineyard with the viticulturist through to the bottle, and you sort of get to know the wines by heart, and as one of your children, so you know the naughty ones, you know the good ones, and the sweet ones, and the bitter ones, and all that. So it makes life a lot easier when you do that when it comes to blending. So the first challenge is definitely in terms of the blending, getting to know the wines. Saying that, I'm hugely excited for the 2019 wines just put together now along with the team, and so that's really looking good. Then, of course, I've spent the last 6 years in Swartland, completely different area, different mindset, different way of doing. I loved it over there. It was a really awesome place to work with. But saying that, I've always missed the border varietals, Sauvignon Blanc and the stuff to work with as well. Luckily, over here, I'm also working with Chenin Blanc and Shiraz, so I carry all that knowledge with me. And then, although I might be slightly rusty here and there, I have some excellent experience from my days at Franschhoek and earlier days at Mr. Freer and Stellenbosch. So, yeah, I look forward to get going again, digging deep, and I think the biggest part of what I'm looking forward to here and where I think I can really contribute is that I'm really focused on winemaking as such. Lammerzoek, of course, I was a little bit more involved with the details around business and marketing and sales, travel the world. So that was great, developing my career in that way. But I found with my new position here at Quoin Rock and Knorr Wines as well, some making, that I'm allowed to focus a lot more. If you have that 20 minutes or 30 minutes free time in the afternoon, it doesn't happen a lot, but if you get that, I can actually spend it doing some research, looking at the YouTube video about the new fermentation technique or whatsoever, and I really enjoy that. Look forward to apply that in next year in the harvest.
I think there's a lot of excitement in Stellenbosch at your arrival. There are a few tears in the Swartland, though, Schalk. Jasper Wickens is watching at the moment. Says, good luck. You in the part of the bird.
Thanks, man.
I'm sure many.
You're going to make me emotional.
Oh, just like we've also got Pippa Pringle saying very excited about today's lineup. Two great winemakers making stellar wines. Let's go into the first of those stellar wines that you're making, Schalk, and it's one that I need after a hot day out on the golf course, draining 70-foot putts regularly across Leopard Creek, and that is your Chardonnay. I've probably got this a degree or two colder than one might normally have it ideally, but in 37-degree heat, I think it is required. For me, it's a really interesting story at the moment, Stellenbosch Chardonnay, because it's kind of, I think, got back to the fore a little. It had maybe been lost in some of the red wine noise, but I think people are starting to remember again just how exciting Stellenbosch Chardonnay can be, and I think just how expressive Stellenbosch Chardonnay can be.
Absolutely, Dan, and I am for one very much excited to work with this. I actually got the chance to put some Chardonnay back at my previous place as well, so keen to take what we've learned there forwards. And over here we have some beautiful Chardonnay vineyards on the foot of the Simonsberg, but we also have a farm. Some people may not know it, but the 3,000-hectare farm near Bredasdorp, the Eland area, where some of the Chardonnay also originates from. What's great about this is you have that riper Stellenbosch component you can work with. One can be a bit more playful in terms of how far you want to push that ripeness, because you always have that little bit more salinity, minerality, lighter style of Chardonnay coming from our Eland farm. So that's in itself two wonderful components to work with. Those two components are in this wine that we're tasting now, and I think what you said about Chardonnay from Stellenbosch maybe got lost a bit over the time, but also I think at some stage you started getting these really overly buttery, massive kind of Chardonnays, and I think this wine, if you taste it now as well, you'll see it really brings you a bit more of that structure that you expect from a Chardonnay. It's not an iffy wine, it's a food kind of wine, but it's not overly buttery. The buttonage is just checked over once a month or so period of time, and I think the guys did a really brilliant job of showing the fruit, showing the terroir. The oak backing is there, a little bit of the vanilla spice coming from the oak. You still get that citrus, lemon peel kind of flavors to it. And then, of course, from the Eland side, it brings that salinity, that fresh minerality. It really is a beautiful wine, especially for where you're sitting at the moment. I can imagine it must go down very well.
It does indeed. And I certainly appreciate what you say there in terms of the style. There are some Chardonnays that really do make you feel like you've been punched in the face by a croissant, and this doesn't you lose those sorts of notes, but it allows the to come through, and there is a nice minerality, and especially on a hot day like this up here, it comes through delightful. I really enjoy it on its own, and I think I could happily drink it on its own, but I also suspect there's quite a lot of food that could sit very comfortably alongside of this. If Schalk is opening up a bottle for dinner, what are you having with this, Schalk?
Well, the number one thing I'd like to have with it is crayfish or seafood. Unfortunately, crayfish you're only able to get, I think, twice a year during crayfish season. So otherwise, normal seafood, nice pan-fried tuna steak, something like that, or even like a cabiche, kind of raw fish meal, and maybe some sushi. Really goes well with this. I can definitely recommend that. So you're not going to find it up there, though.
I was going to say a long list of things that are not available at Harry van Dijk's house tonight at but I know he's got some fabulous food waiting for me. He's trained as a chef in Maputo, so I'm looking forward to the meal he gives us tonight. I love the balance of it. It's always my first point on wine is balance, and this comes through very nicely on so many levels. So a great start. I'm going to set it aside, probably come back to it through the course of the show. My chilled white wine, but we've got furthers, and I'm going to move on to your red blend, your Bordeaux blend. It's Cab Sauv Lead, I think. Talk us through this particular wine, and also what you do, because you've only been there 3 months. When you find a wine like this, and you'll have probably the 2020 vintage already in play, in barrel or getting ready. What sort of role do you play when you arrive at a cellar and the departing winemaker has left assorted wines in various stages of development?
Yes, Dan, that's a very good question. I think I could give you my answer if it's correct or wrong. A lot of guys in the industry will feel maybe a bit different. But my opinion is a brand should never be built on one single person on its own, unless it's the owner, of course, and so forth. And therefore, in terms of my arrival here as well, or departures of previous winemakers, or whoever was here or will come here after me, I think it's important that the seller has a certain style they want to adhere to, show its clients, and show it constantly the same. Obviously, there's vintage differences and stuff. And wine being a natural product, I always hope people do intend to show that vintage differences instead of blending away or over oaking or whatsoever because they're shy of it. I think vintage differences is a beautiful thing that you should show. But there must be that golden thread. And I think the main thing how to establish that is if you work with vineyards like we are able to, that's always from Quoin Rock, against here in the Simonsberg Mountains, with a philosophy in a vineyard that's been maintained by a winemaker and viticulturists alike. So sort of a common goal. It was one of the first things I did here when I arrived here as well. Sit with the team and say, okay, guys, what do you look to achieve with the wines? We went through every single wine, and I think this 2015 is a beautiful example of that. It's certainly a top-class wine, one that really raises the bar, and if I can do my job properly, make a wine like this, I think it's beautifully made. And most importantly, the owners allowed it time to age. So we're drinking the 2015 rate at the moment. And like you said, mainly Cabernet Sauvignon, Cab Franc, and Merlot. Newer vintages that I'm also now busy blending, like 2019 vintage. Does have some Malbec and Petit Verdot added to it as well, so being the typical 5 cultivar Bordeaux blend. So yeah, I mean, obviously I had the chance to taste the 2016, 17, 18s. All the wine showing that constant thread, Simonsberg, cab driven, unmistakable. I think that's most important. And then the 2019s that I had the privilege to blend together, not make, but blend together now. Myself and the team are hugely excited about that. I think it's ones that are going to age really well, show the cultivars, etc. So, yeah, I think that's important. If you focus and concentrate on showing your vineyards in the best possible way, the influence of new winemakers coming in and going is a lot less when you sort of just focusing on this kind of rock star winemaker doing his own thing. So it's definitely a group decision and a long-term one when we talk about our wines and wine style. So yeah, then the Bordeaux blend, like I said, Cab Franc, Merlot, it's 20 months in barrel. Therefore, I'm busy racking and blending the 2090s, like I said. It's about 50% new oak, so quite a fair amount of new oak, but I feel this fruit in the Simonsberg carry the oak very, very well. It's supportive, it gives you a bit of that spicy pencil shaving, it enhances a bit that pencil shaving characters, maybe even a bit of that herbal Cab Franc characters that you expect from a wine in this area. And yeah, structure, ripe tannins, really, I think the time that the wine well can age still very well going forward. But yeah, this in terms of food, you're spot on where you are. Just make sure the guys got a beautiful steak for you tonight. Make sure it's a bit char grilled, or at least the fat side, grill it nicely on an open fire, and you should be A for away with a lovely meal and a lovely wine.
That little hint of green with the Cab Franc coming through, and it grips beautifully. But would you say, of all the wines that you're going to be making, given the reputation in Stellenbosch of the Bordeaux varietals, the Bordeaux Reds, the blends, and the Cab Sav blends in particular, that this more than anything is the one people are probably going to be watching quite closely and see, can this kid from the Swartland get it right?
Absolutely, I believe so. It should be the one that we are measured accordingly. This is the area for Bordeaux varietal, so that most probably is the one that one should be judged. I'm fairly confident, or quite confident, that we will do well. got a few tricks up my sleeve that I can't wait to unleash on this lovely properties, grapes and work of inside.
All right. Well, you've got a great wine here that serves as the benchmark, so something to live up to. But you're certainly a winemaker.
Yeah.
More than do that. A couple more people dropping in to say hello. Frederick saying, "Hi there, Schalk."
Hey, Mr. Kumini, how's it?
And wanting to know how things are going there. So, Frederick, thanks for tuning in. Good to hear from you. And then Lorraine Fenter saying, opened a 2015 red blend last week, was delicious.
Fantastic.
So, for the wine, I've got the same, and it is. You're quite correct, Lorraine. It certainly is delicious. It's also got a very short shelf life based on the looks I'm getting from over the table. People who can't wait. Let's have a crack at your final wine here. And interestingly, when I asked the order that you wanted to try these in, you were very firm that we drink the Shiraz right at the end because you felt that this was a Shiraz that had a fair amount of punch and character to it. Introduce us to this Shiraz then.
Yeah, so Shiraz also like the cab all year from our vineyards in Simmelsburg. Quite a chunky, big and bold kind of style Shiraz. So therefore, I suggest you maybe taste it after the border blend. It's also from a 2015 vintage. So you also had this time to age well, and the tannin is beautifully softly integrated. A lot of cassis, blackberries. But why I really tasted it last is a little bit more that leatheriness, really intense dark fruit to it, and where it might overwhelm a bit if it went straight from the border red after it. So also wine that's been in barrel for 20 months, 50% new oak as well as the border, and I think especially on the nose, it carries the oak so well. It's really fruit jumping out of the glass. The palate, the tannins are well mature, really nice and soft. Although it's big tannins, it is a light tannin. So I think the picking date here was crucial, and probably the thing that made the wine and what it is today. Lovely food wine as well at the end of the day. Both these wines, the Shiraz and the Bordeaux blend, when they come into the cellar, we do spend some time with the crushing and the punch downs and pump overs on the wines. So it's usually about a 4 or 5 time a day pump over regime just to make sure everything gets extracted. Now you have this big bowl, beautiful berries with all the goodness. You want to extract as much as you can from that, and then a bit of a post maceration of the ski. Something that I also really believe in, that really creates an extra layer of depth in your red wines. So I look forward to doing that, and even some barrel ferments maybe from next year onwards to get that new oak acquainted with wine very early on. So yeah.
The style of this particular grape that we're seeing a lot of out of the Swartland is the one we tend to in South Africa refer to Syrah. It's obviously the same grape, but the Syrah, the lighter, more elegant style, the Shiraz, the bigger shoulders, the Syrah playing on the wing, the Shiraz coming off the back of the scrum, so to speak. What does it require of you as a winemaker to translate from where you were and that style of wine to now suddenly making this style of wine and making that slightly different interpretation?
No, Dan, good question. It really definitely is a different style. Although, I mean, you can find in this one as well all that beautiful spice cassis, that spice drawer. It's all there, but it has a backing of that dark, intense red fruit. That, unlike the ones I used to work with in the Swartland, may require a fair amount of new oak to balance that. Also, the tannin structures are a little bit more structured. The swirls over here are a little bit more structured. So, and generally the grapes are also picked a bit riper. So again, you have the new oak component that you absolutely have to really mature the wine well, really soften it up and give it that ageability. Two distinctive styles, but both that I'm very comfortable with working and making. And you never know, maybe a little Swartland approach in the corner of the cellar might add a little extra layer to a wine of this style. So, yeah.
It suggests that there is much excitement to come from Quoin Rock. Before we let you go this evening, Schalk, give us a preview. You're 3 months in. I'm guessing you found your feet a little, and you're starting to know what everything else is, and starting to develop a sense of this is now home. What can we expect from you? What can we expect from Quoin Rock over the next few years?
Yes, for sure. Quoin Rock has been over the last 5 years really trying to re-establish himself. I guess in the next 5 years we'll be a lot more, let's say, louder, and you'll hear a lot more about us as our wines get released more and more. Like you see, we're still on the 2015s of these wines. Some of the whites are obviously a bit newer vintages, etc. But yeah, so as we go on, the brand's really matured well now. And I think it's an exciting time to join this team at a time where they're ready to get on the horse and let it go. You know, we can really rock it now, and I look forward to that. In terms of wine, you can expect what you're seeing in the glass now. Hopefully, a little bit of extra layers in terms of feel and terroir and quality that I want to bring to it. And then, of course, our recent acquisition of Knorr. Next door, there's some exciting stuff happening there. Also a bit more focus on the general public close by, the locals, getting you guys in here, come and spend some time on the farm. And then obviously the Gatay restaurant here at Quoin Rock. We've got some exciting stuff happening there. Jack, our new chef, starting up the restaurant mid-November, entire new menu, look and feel, and I think you guys will be very, very pleased with what you'll find there. So we welcome you. Come and visit. Dan, you too, please let me know if you're up for a game of golf.
Most definitely. Some golf, some wine, some food, and who knows, maybe one day a trip to your new vineyard in the Ukraine and see how that is going as well.
You never know.
It's been lovely having you on the show. Great to catch up again. The wine's fantastic, but no surprises there. What's going to be really interesting is seeing how your journey unfolds, and the only thing I'm fairly certain of is it's going to be a very exciting one with some more fabulous wine, which is what we've come to expect from you. So thank you. I appreciate the time.
Thank you very much, Dan. Hope you enjoy your time out there. Cheers.
So there we go, Schalk Opperman. Until recently, the man out of Lummershoek, where he was the winemaker and the general manager and the gardener and the bricklayer and the plumber and just about everything at Lummershoek. He's now focused solely on the wine at Quoin Rock and seems to be having a great time so far. 3 months in, the wine we've tasted this evening hasn't been his as yet. So we'll look forward to, in a few vintages' time, to get the full Schalk Opperman touch. But what I can tell you is that the Quoin Rock wine is definitely going down beautifully. Even this Chardonnay, it's definitely a lot warmer than it was when I first opened it about 25 minutes ago. Because if you missed the start of the show, I'm up at Leopard Creek at the moment, where it's closing in on sunset, and it's still almost 40 degrees. It's a nice warm part of the world. It's only a lot warmer than the water off Robben Island, and that is of particular interest this evening because our second guest tonight spent some time in that water, and deliberately he decided it would be a very good idea to go for a swim from Big Bay across to Robben Island, and for a very good cause. He's a dear friend of mine. He's been on the show on numerous occasions. He makes some lovely wine, and he's clearly now the new Rake Nicholl. Hello, Rob Armstrong. How are you?
Hello, Dan. Hello, everybody. I'm very well. Warming up slowly.
Congratulations. It's a fabulous achievement. It's, even by your standards, a very stupid thing to do, but you're quite good at doing very stupid things and pulling them off successfully. Before we ask you how the swim was, what was the motivation for getting in the water and doing this?
Started probably about 3 years ago. I've always been big into rugby and my follies in mixed martial arts and Muay Thai after the Way of the Warrior TV show almost 10 years ago. Yeah, things just went south. I started picking up some really bad gout attacks. Nothing to do with all the wine I'm drinking and all the skilpakkies, of course, but I was really struggling to get stuck into sport, and swimming just kind of fell in my lap. And I was inspired by a local friend, Pierre Yule, who swam Robben Island almost 2 years ago, and also for Watershed to do this. So everything just kind of fell into place. I've never been a swimmer. In fact, it's Red Hill up in Joburg at the inter-house galas, they used to put me in a gorilla suit, and I was the gimp. I was not allowed to swim. So as the cheerleader for the swimming group in school days to swimming Robben Island, it couldn't have been something I ever thought about many years ago. I'm not, this body's not really built for swimming, but surprisingly it is. I can handle the cold water, and I've just fallen in love with the sport, really. Open water swimming and the cold have really helped me a lot with everything in my life recently. So that was my big motivation. So thank you, Pierre.
It's one thing to decide that you might like to try some swimming. It's another to swim quite as far and in as challenging a way as you did, and that was to do this Robben Island crossing. I know it's taken a while to get to it. There's some weather challenges, but when you did get it, I suspect the motivation wasn't just that your friend Pierre had suggested it and it filled a nice gap in your life, but there was also an organization that you wanted to get behind and to really raise some money for.
Yeah, Watershed have been near and dear to our hearts as a farm for many years. I love supporting them with whatever we can do, and this was a nice way for me, I think, to try and get a big amount of money raised for a really good cause. So Watershed do animal sterilizations in communities who can't really afford to sterilize their animals themselves, and it's a great project. It gets animals a second chance. Lots of rehoming. We have a Watershed dog of our own, Theodore. He's absolutely crazy, but we love him to bits. And I think the whole essence of giving a dog another chance is so important to me as a person. I really am in awe of the work that Watershed do, and anything I can do to help them, I will gladly do. We've had quite a few charity events, and I'm not a golfer, but I bid for a golf game with Francois Pinot and Tox van der Linde, and that was a fantastic morning, also in aid of Watershed and the charity. But I would never have gotten to spend time with my Rugby World Cup heroes from '95 if I hadn't been part of what we do with Watershed. So it's a really cool organization. I love what they do.
Well, you saw the website there on screen. If you'd like to go and learn a little bit more about what they do, then please do. And I know Rob would appreciate any support you can give, or just some interest in having a look there. So they got you out in the water. Tell us a little bit about the swim. I know even Big Rob, my huge, fearless mate, was a little nervous, and you are only human. How terrifying was it? How enjoyable was it? What was the whole experience like in the end?
It was absolutely terrifying leading up to it. I think I was a massive pile of nerves for the last 3 weeks, just waiting for the green light to go ahead. And the channel crossing with regards weather is quite critical. There is really only one company to do it with, or you want to do it with, and that's Big Bay Events, and safety is their greatest motivator. So we had to wait until the conditions were ideal. And probably the 2 bottles of wine I had the 2 nights before the swim didn't help me, but it's we got the notice green light to cross the following day, and then we just knuckled down and did it. Rocked up in Big Bay, climbed on a boat and saw Robben Island there, and I've never been to Robben Island, so that was quite fun. And yeah, I've done the training. I got cold water proficient. I'm used to the cold. I've got enough thermal insulation on me, and it was just a matter of putting on the faffs and getting my swim cap done and climb in the water and then swim. I was really blown away by the natural beauty of Robben Island. It's a protected marine reserve, so swimming in with the kelp all around and seeing the starfish and the perlemoen and the crayfish, I kind of wanted to just hang around Robben Island and not swim back to Big Bay, to be quite honest. But that was really nice leaving the island. The swim halfway across changed significantly. It got quite choppy, and when I was swimming in waves like this, we were doing waves like this. But it was fun. I loved every second of it. I felt safe, and I certainly wasn't warm, but I was well looked after by the skippers on the boat, and I did my shark manifestations that if they are going to bite me, please bite the leg without the earland tattoo. And ended up swimming slower than I was expected, but it wasn't a race. It was just a matter of wanting to get across and seeing my family and getting a warm hug from my wife when I landed on the beach, which I did get. So all in all, I'm still on still on cloud nine. I've got a few more bigger swims planned, so I'm trying not to celebrate too much. But I've just loved it. I feel on top of the world, and it's a great feeling because it was for a good cause as well. It wasn't just for my own benefit.
Swathed in good karma, and rightly so. Well done, Big Rob. Very proud of you. Terrific job. And you avoided any Japanese fishing vessels, so good job all around to get over there, and a job that deserves some celebration. So let us do a little of that. It needs no affirmation that I'm a big fan of Big Rob wines, which also go by the name of Haut Espoir. And we've got an interesting one to do today because our time together involves not just reminiscing over our time at university or your latest daft idea, or you trying to show me a snake you've just caught that I've got no interest in seeing, but also celebrating wine and celebrating it in particular ways. And I have, as we showed, Dan really likes one a little earlier this year, the Erin, my first wine, which is a tribute to my daughter. You played tribute to your son James with a wine in 2007. And so today we're going to compare your regular 2007 cab with the very special one for Big Rob Jr. Let's kick off with the first one. And just on its own, I think the question most people will be asking is, well, at 13 years old, here's a Franche Cabernet Sauvignon. How is it drinking? Has it started to lose itself a little? Does it still have some character? I had some of this probably 3-4 weeks ago, and it did what it has done in the last year or two, and I've drunk it. Just really not surprised me, because I think I was expecting it, but just confirm that for something that's 13 years old, it's still so fresh, it's still so vibrant, it's still got such fullness to it, despite the fact that it's been going now for almost a decade and a half.
Yeah, it's got some legs. I'm well impressed with the wine. Our philosophy on the farm has always been to make handcrafted wines, try and retain the integrity as far as possible, but to reflect the vineyard. This is our oldest block on the farm. We planted this in the year 2000. We call it the Schalk and Hevelberg block. I'd have mentioned before in one of our shows, it gets beaten with the ugly stick. Wind, heavy rain. We have an average of about 2 meters of rainfall a year. This vintage was quite special. For family reasons, I'll mention about the James shortly, but 2007, I remember being a really special vintage. The reds came in and they were just destined for greatness. So the wine spent about 3 months in contact with its skins, so lots of heavy soaking. I think we've got lots of dark tannins. It's got real structure and unctuousness, but it's got still that fresh vibrancy. It doesn't, to me, taste like this has been in bottle for more than a few years, although it's a 13-year-old wine. It's got fantastic longevity. I can't really speak about too much else other than the difference between this and the James, but it to me comes down to the viticulture and then our oaking. We use 300-liter barrels on our cab, and for the first time in our history, we've used 5 hogsheads, and we wanted to be able to age the cab for a little bit longer than usual. So this was a first for us using the 500-liter barrels. So this went into new French and new Hungarian oak, and it was in for about 2 years in barrel, and then taken out, bottled, and we released this wine about 5-6 years ago. The joy of having a very small cellar is that I can reserve quite a few bottles for ourselves. So we re-release old vintages from time to time. So this 2007 is currently available if you would like to buy some. It's showing that definitive Franschhoek mintiness. You're hearing about the notes of Cab Franc. This almost reminds me a bit of Cab Franc notes, although it is 100% Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yeah, it's an interesting story, the Cabernet Sauvignon story in Franschhoek, and one that maybe doesn't get quite as enough attention as it should. And this is a good reason why we should look at it a little more, because this has lasted for a good solid 13 years. It also bodes well for your specialist wine, the one for James, your son, and I know you'll be hoping it goes to at least 21 years, if not longer. What's the process? You want to create this wine, you want to pay tribute to your son, you want to make it something extra special, and as a winemaker, as a wine person, you know what you need to do. How do you find that particular patch, those specific grapes, that exact barrel that says this is the one that goes to the family?
It was a comment that Schalk made about wine being somewhat like your children, and James, our son, was born the day before we won the World Cup Rugby in 2007. He didn't have a name for the first week of his life, so we called him Klein Bakkies. But James is a very special man, young man, and he's just turned 13. I remember the day very carefully when our former winemaker Nicholl and I were standing around these 500-liter barrels and talking about the potential of re-wooding or super wooding a small amount of wine for James. So ultimately, it was a whimsical decision that we decided to take 2 of these barrels and re-wood them. So we took the brand new barrels and brand new barreled the wine for another 2 years. So it's a process called superwooding. But that being said, this to me is not, it doesn't reflect superwooding. I don't pick up massive oakiness in this wine. It is somewhat fresher and more vibrant in terms of fruit than the normal 2007. But I think the whole point was we wanted to give it superwooding so that we could age this wine in bottle extensively. And ultimately, if James chooses he wants to go to UCT, then maybe this will be his varsity fund. This wine was about celebrating him, and as you know, with the Aaron, it just gives a parent a great amount of pride to be able to share in something that we love. I love wine. I love living in Franschhoek, and this is really just a small homage to our son James. So it's doing exceptionally well. I don't get to taste these often, so thank you, Dan. When you said you wanted to do the comparison, this was a great opportunity for us to open a bottle, and I just have to make sure that I leave some for Erica when I go home.
Well, there is a definite distinction. You mentioned the hint of Cabernet Franc to the general Cab Sav, and it's certainly there, that perfume that comes through, that little bit of greenness that we also got in part of Schalk's red blend. But what I get here, and it reminds me of when you sent up the first bottle of the Aaron, which is also a Cab Sav, and I was expecting this mouthful of tannin and crunch and having to think, oh, well, I hope it's going to taste nice and well. And already it was so drinkable and approachable. And for me, it had a definite feel of Cinsault to it. And there's just that little hint of that to this as well, a softness to it that 13 years on, I just wouldn't have been expecting.
Yeah, it's a spot on comment, Dan. It's not that I struggle with tasting our cabs. I love tasting our cabs, and Franschhoek cabs have got a great reputation, but it's just always so exciting for me to try cabs at different stages. As you mentioned, the Aaron has much more of a sort of Cinsault-driven note now. We can taste the wine in 6 months and it'll be a completely different animal. And that's what I love about approaching cabs, is that they constantly change. There's always something in the glass for me to explore and to kind of invite me in and just question. Without a doubt, this is one of my favorite varieties. I love the grapes, working with the vine. When the grapes come into the cellar, Cab fills it with this beautiful terpene menthol character, and it's just all over the place. I really enjoy Cab. I think it is probably my favorite.
And I think there are a lot of winemakers who would not only agree, but also just have a lot of fun with it as well. The drinking part as well, of course, of the making part. So a lovely tribute to James. And when he starts drinking wine when he's 18, because he's your son and it wouldn't possibly happen before he's 18, I'm sure he'll have a great appreciation for it. It's a tribute wine for him. You also might need a tribute wine for the Crossing 2020, or whatever you might decide to call it, to kick off a whole pile of new adventures. Before we do say goodbye to you, you mentioned earlier that you've got some other adventures in mind. Are you in a position to share some of them yet? Is it Cape Town to Mauritius, perhaps, or a quick dash up the coast to the Seychelles?
Are there any lakes in Zimbabwe, Dan? I can't really remember.
Yes, largely full of crocodiles, Big Rob.
No, the sharks are enough. I think I'll leave the crocs. I'd like to do Cape Point swim, and then a big thing which was planted as I did the Robben Island crossing was to consider the English Channel. That's going to take a lot more training and a lot more hours in the water. So I've got to pull in my support from the team on the farm, who have been amazing, supporting me going into the freezing cold Berg River Dam with all the other Franschhoek swimmers and allowing me to do the hours. It's going to need a lot more. So there are a few planned things, obviously all in line with raising funds for the various charities. On that, we've got hashtag Rugby Unites with Victor Ubogo coming up. So that's a nice opportunity to work with the SA Rugby legends and donate some well-deserved and well-needed money for the feeding scheme. So look out for hashtag Rugby Unites and Victor Ubogo when the sea of red supporters come across to us next year for the Lions tour. That's certainly going to be fun. But yeah, watch the space for the swims, Dan. Obviously, I'll keep you posted. But thank you for having me tonight and for giving Watershed a nice punt. If you follow me on social media, on Instagram and on Facebook, I'll keep the Back a Buddy campaign live for a few more weeks. Just find me on social media and click the link if you would like to make a donation. And thank you, everyone, for all your support. Thank you, Dan, for yours. Really appreciate it.
It's a great, great pleasure. You're an inspiring man, Big Rob, in your large but quiet way, and you make some fantastic wine along the way, so no reason to not support you. Thank you for this evening. Enjoy the rest of that wine, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you again soon as more adventures play out. Big Rob Armstrong down at Haut Espoir. One of my favorite people in the wine industry, the gentlest of giants. I see Schalk, who was on with us a little earlier. Great to see my old neighbor, Big Rob, again. Schalk, of course, was in Franschhoek. Fantastic wines. Cheers, mate. P.S. I will never come kickboxing training with them again. My ears are still singing or ringing or both. Yeah, I wouldn't do that ever with Big Rob. Jasper Wickens, my James, was born just before Wales in 2019 World Cup. We'll go natural and hipster with his wine. Jasper, we'll have to get you back on the show and talk about your wine for your particular James. Just a whole lot of people chipping in and sending good wishes. Good wishes to two great people who've had slightly different adventures to celebrate tonight. Schalk Opperman, his new adventure at Quoin Rock after bidding farewell to Lammersoek and taking up that new job in Stellenbosch with Quoin Rock. And a very exciting time the Ukrainian owners put a lot of time and effort into it. And I think we've got a lot to see coming out of Quoin Rock, especially now with the guiding hand of Schalk overseeing the wine. And then Big Rob Armstrong, Haut Espoir, right next door to Buchenholzkloof in Franschhoek, celebrating his adventure, his swim across to Robben Island, raising money for Watershed, and also allowing us to taste some 13-year-old Cabernet Sauvignon that finds itself in a really, really good space. So that does it for this evening. I might not be swimming to Robben Island, but I suspect I'll be jumping in a swimming pool slightly as the sun sets over Leopard Creek at the Nova Sun Golf Day, where we've been raising money for the Kambaku Golf Club and the Komatipoort community with Harry van Dijk and his friends and family. And a big thank you to Warren Griffiths and his friend Jacques, who came along to support us as well. What have we got to look forward to the rest of the week? Well, the Mentors range from KWV with a Zell on Thursday, all 8 of them. It's going to be a busy, busy evening, including a Petit Syrah that's being made in tiny numbers, but which has a lot of people very excited indeed. And also look out this week, our regular recorded episode, we catch up with the Cape Wine Academy, Heidi Dermany, and we have a very special offer that some of you might be able to take advantage of. But whether you can or can't, what you can take advantage of is the Pick and Pay Wine Club. It's free to join. You just send your smart shopper number through to 36775 by text message. You'll join free of charge, and with that, it's 25% off each month a particular case and a particular magnum, 20% off a selection of 10 different wines, free delivery, 6 bottles or more if you're buying online, and you get 3 times the smart shopper points on all the wines that you buy. So it really is a no-brainer. Join up if you haven't already. Join us again for more live tasting on Thursday with the Mentors range Giselle from KWV. And a big, big thank you to Schalk from Quoin Rock, Big Rob at Haut Espoir, making lovely wine and also enjoying some very exciting adventures. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye from Leopard Creek, and I'll see you back in the Dan Really Likes Wine cellar on Thursday. Cheers.